In today's coding video, we'll be going over how we can create a program that outputs the factor of any input number. So before we go into the code, we need to understand what the factorial of a number is. So the factorial of a number, let's say 5, is going to be 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So the numbers are decreasing from 5 to 1 and they are multiplying each other, which will give us 120. Now computers do not reason as humans do. So even though we can see the full picture like this, our computer program will not be able to see the full picture. Instead, we'll have to simplify our problem into simple steps. And those simple steps in computer science is called the algorithm. So what happens is we drop down 5 and we make the current value of the factorial of 5 for now. We drop the 5 and the 4 and we multiply the 2 and the factorial now becomes 20. And we repeat the process. For 3 we get 60. Then with 2 we get 120, and with 1 we get 120 again. And we can see that we kept on dropping the value of the factorial as the number kept on reducing from 5 to 1, or as the iterations with each new iteration. And in C++, we can represent those multiplications using this notation. So a times and the number. When we have that notation in place, we now need to find a way to express these iterations from 5 to 1 in C++. And for us to do this, we're going to use a for loop. Okay, so now that we have the basic idea of what to do to create a factorial function, we can now go to the code by including the IO_stream file, which will be needed to input the value n and to output the factorial, using namespace standard so that our code is more readable, especially if we're going to involve strings or outputting and inputting data. So now let's start by creating the function. The function will be outside our main function, okay, and we're going to call the function factorial, the factorial function. So we start with the return type, which will be a long, then the function name, which will be factorial, and it's going to take an argument n. Alright, so why is the return type long? This is because the function returns a long value because factorials can be very big. Yeah, so like let's say the factorial of a number like 10, even though 10 is a small number, factorial end up being big. Then the word factorial, that's the name of our function. Of course, we could have named it anything which you feel comfortable with. Okay, then it takes in an argument n from the user. And it's very important to validate the value of n because we don't want n to be a negative number. However, in the factorial function, we will not involve the checking of n being a negative. We'll do that in the main function. Okay, so we initialize our value with 1. So the variable fac is one which is going to hold the value of the factorial throughout each iteration to the final iteration, and then that's the value is going to be returned to our main function. So we create our for loop for the iteration. Okay. Remember, setting iterations from n all the way down to 1, and 1 is just a tad greater than 0. Then we write our for loop the same way we explained it in the previous example when we used 5. Then now remember I said 0 also has a factorial which is 1, so we need to add an if statement. So this for loop should only be followed if n is not 0. Otherwise, if n is 0, we should skip this for loop and just return the value of 1 to the function, because now the factorial of 0 is 1. Okay, let me just make the comments neat. then I comment this if. So remember that 0 factorial is 1, so we have to consider this edge case. Okay, now that we have the factorial function, we can close the function with the closing curly brace. Then now we can get to the main function. And remember, I said the main function is the most important function in a C++ program. We prompt the user to enter the value of n. So we say cout, enter the value you want to find the factorial of. Okay, we close with a semicolon. We create the integer n, then cin n. This we're going to allow the user to put in the inputs. And it's important whenever you're writing code, usually especially for class exercises and even in the industry, you need to make sure you leave comments, because comments help the person who's going to go through your code understand what each line is doing, or what your workmates, if it's a project, your workmates are going to understand what your particular line of code was doing. Okay. Now that we have the input from the user, we now need to validate to make sure that we put in a value of n that is usable. So to do this, we're going to use if statement. So if n is greater than or equal to 0, okay, we need to increase. If that's the case, we're going to output the required value. Then in the opposite case, in the else statement, we have to increase the number of attempts. And I forgot to mention, we have in the question there was a limit to the number of attempts someone can have. So we're going to initialize the number of attempts with 0, and we put this in a while loop. Okay, so while attempts is less than 3, because we need a maximum of 3 attempts. Okay, we put all this in a while loop. Alright, so the while loop makes sure that not more than 3 attempts are made. And the break statement makes us leave the while loop if someone gives us a good value of n. So the while loop and the if else statements also just have to make sure that our value of n is valid. Okay, I think our program is now okay. Let me just put the cout. So cout, I think enter another value. Let me see what it's supposed to be. Okay, let me just paste what was supposed to output. Okay, so supposed to output, sorry, you entered an invalid number. Please try to enter a valid positive integer. And we also increase the number of attempts in this message. Is there anything else? Yes, so we need to make sure that if the attempts are 3, the user should know that the program has stopped because the attempts are 3. The user shouldn't be left guessing as to why the program has stopped. Then if you noticed on this if statement on line 44, I have not added an opening and closing curly brace, because the C++ knows that if there are no curly braces, then the line just after the if statement belongs to that if statement. Okay, and this should be everything. I'm sure if we run our program. Okay, let's start with 5 as we did in the example, because we already know we should expect 120. And yeah, as you can see, our program has output 120. Okay, let me make the work look a little bit more neat. Okay, we run the program again. Okay, let me try to put another number, 7, and we can see it's output the right factorial. Let's try maybe a negative number. Okay, it's prompted us to try again, and if we try to put the same negative number, it's giving us our third try, and the program has terminated. So we can see that our program is working as requested. Okay, that's everything. I'll attach the link to the code we've written in the description below. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, like and subscribe to the channel.